traditional Ukrainian brides. I have made so many videos debunking this spurious claim propagated by the Ukrainian bride business, and they still don't give up. They're still pushing it. Why is that? In today's video, I'm going to dive a little bit into the explanations why they keep trying to claim that Ukrainian women are traditional in spite of the evidence to the contrary, overwhelming evidence. There's a very good reason for that, and it's a big financial incentive primarily. So first of all, seasonal greetings from Odessa Mama on the shores of the Black Sea, because I'm actually here on the ground in Ukraine. Unlike these Ukrainian bride business owners, they are long gone from this country physically, and I think they've lost touch with the reality here on the ground. Let's get into it. Поехали!
You're coming to us to get higher level of beauty, age gap, so younger, but most importantly, traditionality. So I should have mentioned that first. But yeah, actually, traditional is the number one reason that guys say they're coming to us. They're looking for a traditional values woman. Number one is traditionality. Number two is well, it's a draw between 2 and 3 is beauty and body type, i.e. vis-a-vis slim, right? Sexy. And that's why you're coming to us, and to do it efficiently, time efficiently.
So there you have it. Ukrainian bride business, when they poll their potential clients, they are looking for traditional. But it's a pretty ambiguous term. And it's a pretty good buzzword apparently that they're picking up on. Because as I said in countless other videos regarding the Ukrainian bride business in general, Ukrainian women are not particularly traditional by most metrics. Like if you were to take a scale of 1 to 10, put American, say core Anglosphere women as being around a 1 or a 2, Ukrainian women would probably be about a 3, maybe a 3 or 4, depending. And obviously you have intergenerational gaps like you do in the West. The older people are, normally the more traditional they are. If they're from the countryside, then probably going to be more traditional than women who are from a city. But, as I said in most of these videos, Ukraine and the region, very low fertility rate. So women don't have big families. It's about 1.2 pre-2022 invasion in Ukraine. It's going to be somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5. So that's lower than in most of like North America or Western Europe. Virginity rate, you're not going to meet too many virgins in Ukraine over the age of 18, I'd say. Divorce rate is super high. Yes, you've heard that right. Ukrainian divorce rate is over 50%. Over 50%. This is not traditional at all. And actually, a lot of these things are just part of the culture. There's like no real social stigma with divorce in Ukraine or in the surrounding countries around it. And it is higher than in the United States or Canada. Yes, it is higher. A lot of guys, even guys who watch my channel regularly, they still refuse to believe it. They have cognitive dissonance about it. Yes, it is not just radical feminists that lead to divorce. It's also apparently the traditional women. And if you're talking about things like cooking and cleaning, as I like to joke, Italian men cook better than Ukrainian women in general. The other big canard that they like to say is that there are way more Ukrainian women than men. This is such a common misrepresentation of the demographics. Up until 35, there were more men in these countries, not just Ukraine, but also in the surrounding countries than there are women. So many Ukrainian women left. Obviously, we have the Russo-Ukrainian War at the moment. What could we say is a little bit maybe more traditional? Why do we have this maybe mischaracterization of Ukrainian women? Well, I think they're definitely less financially emancipated. So they are more likely to focus on raising the family than having a career. That doesn't mean that they don't work. Very often women have been street cleaners and worked for the public services here in Odessa. So women do work, but they are less fixated on being the main breadwinner or being an equal breadwinner as you're going to find in the core Anglosphere, we'll say. So countries like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, US, and Canada, that is clear. And they definitely are slimmer. I agree with Joan about that point for sure. Obesity amongst women under 35, pretty rare, and quite a big difference with obviously countries like America or Canada, where there's really a big problem with obesity. So the fact that on average this is the region, if not the country in the world with the most beautiful women on average. points 2 and 3 that he's talking about definitely are true. The first one, not so much, and actually haven't spoken to many guys who've gone to these marriage agencies or matchmakers. They come to me for consulting advice. I'll put a link to that down below in the description. So if you do need some advice, then we can jump on a consulting call together, go and invest in that. It's when I suggest countries where the women are definitely more traditional, like say Armenia, for example, which is also a predominantly Christian country. And I say, yeah, in spite of maybe the Kardashians having heritage from there, actually in general, the women are not as beautiful as they're going to be on average here in Ukraine. And actually they are really traditional. They quickly lose interest. And if you Google it, there are no, from last time, from what I can see anyways online, there are no marriage agencies trying to pitch traditional Armenian brides to men from the West. Interesting. So the main thing I want to emphasize here is mainly marketing, right? There is this myth that has been propagated by dodgy marketing agencies, people outside, and they have invested millions and millions and millions of dollars and euros and pounds and yen into this myth that Ukrainian women are not just beautiful and in general slim, which I agree with, but also traditional, because that is the buzzword that they find sells very well. So, you know, why not Moldovan brides? We're going to be getting that soon. Why not Kazakhstani brides? Why not Armenian brides? Well, it's a factor mainly of marketing. Just market on one brand, Ukrainian bride. And, you know, then guys say, oh, Ukrainian brides traditionally associate all these words with it. So, and the other thing that Joe brought up was age gap. Now, actually, that's an interesting point here, because we might say that having a larger age gap is more traditional. When I look around here in Ukraine, when I look at the stats, actually, statistically, it's not a massive age gap locally in terms of the difference between the age of the man and the woman. The woman is generally a few years younger, but it's not enormous, right? And, you know, I'm in a very nice area of Odessa, where guys definitely, compared to the average, have a lot of money. And when I hang out in the cafes and restaurants, I don't really see much massive age gap between the couples I see. And there are a lot of beautiful women in this area. Definitely very impressive in terms of the beauty level. But more than 7, 8 years, I don't see it so often, I have to say. Now, I am actually myself in a relationship with a Ukrainian girl, and we do have a 20 odd year age gap. And actually, ironically, so does Joe, who I'm reacting to, and he lived in Ukraine. That's how he met his wife. So it is clearly possible, but I wouldn't say that it's the norm. And actually, these marriage agencies, from what I can see, they actually recommend to their clients also not to really go above a 10-year age gap, because then it's going to be very difficult for them. So whenever I've been back in my home country, Ireland, I have some friends who do have a reasonably big age gap in their marriages. It's not that common, but I asked them recently, I said, hey, does anyone have a problem with it? Because I've heard this myth that, oh, if you have a big age gap in the West, you'll be ostracized and people look down at you and all this kind of stuff. But he told me no. He doesn't. No one seems to have a problem with it. And they have like definitely over a 10-year age gap. Yeah, when I was in Ireland with Angela, I don't think anyone cared, to be frank. So I am kind of thinking it's a bit of a more myth in terms of a really a big difference. Like there is the saying that a socially acceptable age gap in a relationship is half the age of the man plus 7 for the woman's age. So say the guy was like 50, that would mean 32. So again, that would be kind of the age gap that we see even with Joe. And let's see, with me, that would be, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit outside that, but not by much. So yeah, I'm not really sure that it's going to be a big difference in terms of that, and whether that's traditional or not, well, that's kind of open to your interpretation. Maybe it is a little bit more traditional. Yeah, I just think a word of warning about this, because it's mainly driven by marketing, is that there is a trend, not necessarily just with Ukrainians, I just think in general in this region. There are a lot of women that try to exploit men for money, and they love to tap into this thing about traditionality and traditional gender roles. Is basically you open up your wallet and paying for stuff. What I do think that, say, Ukrainian women are definitely more than women in the US or Canada or somewhere else like the UK is, they are definitely more classically feminine. I would say that in addition to being slimmer and focusing more on their appearance than is necessarily going to be the average in somewhere like the UK as a core Anglosphere, they're also softer spoken, more tender, more friendly in general, and have a more agreeable personality. Now, I think what happens a lot with guys who are starved of attention, In particular, guys who are looking for more the tradcon wife, they're starved of attention, they're not getting dates or not getting dates they want or relationships they want in somewhere like the US or Canada, then they are very easily drawn into this and manipulated and vulnerable to the femininity. And that's actually one of the reasons I think that so many guys get scammed in the past year, whether it's either online with the PPL site. Even now, even after so many videos I've made warning guys, if you pay for communication online, it is not in your interest. Basically, it's 99% like you're getting scammed, in my opinion. They still write to me, hey, this website, I talked to this woman, and then they go back and forth. And I was like, you're talking to a photo probably. It's probably a guy even, and you're just getting scammed. And the reason why you fall in love with this avatar basically is because they have software and they figure out how to manipulate you. And one of the things is giving you attention, claiming to be traditional, and all these keywords they know that will be easy to manipulate, guys. So you need to be very careful not to fall into this trap, whether it's marketing from these scammy PPL sites or just in general. You're going to have women that basically take coaching to be able to manipulate money out of men. And this is particularly common in Russia, not so much in Ukraine, but in Russia. Women pay to become these kind of like scammers, professional scammers. Now, they don't see themselves as scammers. They think they're being traditional women and that gentlemen should be generous. That's a key word, generous to them. So
I'm a Slavic woman, my heart is made of ice. Just walking by you, I make your pee-pee rise. Every single man dream of wifing me up, but I don't fall for their nasty, silly trap. I only have eyes for billionaires, turning them into millionaires. Everyone wants a Slavic woman until they find out the real deal.
Anglosphere guys looking for traditional brides, that is like catnip for these kind of manipulative women or the online scam industry that hopefully will disappear. But I even saw a channel recently that was dealing outside of this region, and like it's crazy how men and women are just manipulated, especially older people, especially widows or widowers. You just need to be very careful. And I've had consulting calls before where I've had to break up some widower who thinks he's in a relationship with a 25-year-old Instagram model, or even sometimes it's a woman who's 40 and they've never spoke to them in person and they're spending thousands of dollars. So just be careful of that. And in general, it's a business, and the key words for them obviously are traditional, beautiful, slim, and age gap. And actually I agree with the beautiful and slim part 100%. That's backed up. Age gap, it's not that misleading. Yeah, I think it's possible, but I don't think they really promote much of age gaps anymore. But the traditional part, be very, very wary, because you need to understand what Ukrainian women are, or the women of the region. We're going to get why that's also very interesting in conclusion to this video in a few moments, and what Ukrainian women are not in terms of what might be seen as traditional. So in short, they are feminine, slim, less financially emancipated, and definitely on average more beautiful. But don't be expecting a 1950s Stepford wife who's going to be cooking and cleaning and 22 years of age and marrying a fat slob from somewhere in the US Midwest out in a farm. And yeah, that just doesn't exist. Another thing to be also very cognizant of is what kind of women are attracted to the Ukrainian bride business. They're women, let's be frank about it, who are looking for an immigration plan. The real crux of the industry is that men primarily from North America, it can be from other parts of, we'll say, the West, and they are going to move these women to live with them in Canada or the US. It could be somewhere else in Europe, but that's, or in Asia like Australia or New Zealand or maybe Japan or somewhere. But that is basically the crux of the industry. It is, she is going to emigrate to the US or Canada. It is an immigration plan. The women need to be open for immigration and not have other options. And as I've said in some of these other videos, the anecdotal evidence is, having spoken to someone, a few people who know the long-term success rates of this industry, or just have been in groups of guys who are married to women from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Moldova, somewhere else in this region, Poland maybe. It's like 80% of these kind of marriages fail, because once the woman has residency, the green card, or citizenship, yeah, what is the guy's kind of surplus to requirements? She's in a new dating market. Average women are better looking. Now she's got all these other options around her probably. And I think there's another point that I'd like to make that I didn't emphasize before. A lot of the guys are attracted to this kind of industry, looking for the traditional wife, live in more rural areas. They're not in like the New York or Toronto. And if you bring a woman who is used to a city lifestyle in Ukraine, this isn't, in spite of this war, not an economic backwater. Like Kiev, the quality of life was pretty good before 2022. That's why I was helping so many guys move to this region. Even these Ukrainian bride business owners, they normally live here. And you try to move her to some place in the boondocks, like she's not going to fit in. She's going to be miserable there. And yeah, she's probably going to want to leave, come back to Ukraine or move to the big city and maybe meet someone else. So just be wary of that. So yeah, that's in short my reaction to this kind of interesting piece of marketing advice. That is what his target demographic is, because he is basically marketing to these wife hunters. They're not in general interested in living in the region. They actually a lot of times don't like the region. A lot of times they don't like Ukrainians or Ukraine, which seems a bit surprising if that's where you're looking for your, a long-term wife from, right? A long-term partner or wife from. You think you would want to like the people in the culture she's come from, but my experience is that there isn't much of a correlation there. So let me just play an interesting final clip, and this will be rather satisfying moment for me to show you.
Oh, we will definitely not be in Russia. We would be out of business before I'd be in the Russian bride business, with this dispute. It's unfortunately separated Russians and Ukrainians, I think, forever. It's one of the consequences of the war.
Joe is there saying that, he'd rather go out of business or whatever than pitch Russian brides. But then I went to his other channel, because he actually has another channel. And it's a bit strange, because when you look through, he's organized some sort of dating event. Apparently, there are women who are marketed as Ukrainian, because it's Ukrainian dating.
First of all, so it's a Ukraine dating product. It's not a match guarantee product.
But when you go and look at cities and countries where they're listed, there's a couple that are listed, one in St. Petersburg, one in Moscow, and then there are a few that actually list that you can see they're Russian. They're promising to cook you Russian cuisine. So it's a bit like a matryoshka doll. They have Ukrainian brides, and then you pull it up, and there's a Russian. There's even a woman from Kyrgyzstan who lives in Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan, who's also in it. So how do these women get into a Ukrainian dating, database? Or, they were supplied from somewhere. I don't think these women all started to try and pretend that they were Ukrainian if they're going to list that they live in Kyrgyzstan and they live in Moscow. So this is the pivot that I said that these guys have to do to stay relevant in this region. It's an immigration plan, basically. The women need to want to have to immigrate. And Ukrainians definitely don't need typical client from matchmaking service in order to do that, unless they're really hard up, which is why it probably attracts many single moms in their 40s. And that's fine and everything, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you just seem to have a mixture now of women who a lot of them even seem to be already living somewhere in North America. And for some reason, they're on this Ukrainian dating base, and they're not even originally from Ukraine. And many of them not even living in Ukraine. So it just seems like it's already, and he actually put a /tag, I think he called it the experiment. So
first, you need to pre-register right there on matchguarantee.com/experiment. It is going to be an experiment.
So that is what I predicted a year ago. The Ukrainian bride business, it's dead. So as a mass marketing phenomenon, it is going to pivot and continue to pivot. I've noticed the few, rival services that are still there, they tend to be using a lot of language like Slavic brides or Eastern European, and suddenly they're saying, well, actually there isn't any real difference between Moldovan brides and Ukrainian brides. Yeah, because they're running out of Ukrainians to pitch, in my opinion. That's what it looks like. So anyways, just thought that would be a nice kind of way to conclude the video. Ukrainian bride business, if it has to start pretending that Kyrgyz women are Ukrainian and Moldovan women are Ukrainian and women in St. Petersburg are going to cook you nice Russian dishes that are Ukrainian, then it's definitely gone as a mass phenomenon. So that is what I'll say. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the main way that I help guys who are going to the Ukrainian bride business as their first step is on a consulting call. Down below in description to the video is a link to that. And we can jump on that call and I explain to you in more bespoke detail about how to approach your situation and actually be more realistic about meeting beautiful and sincere women, whether it happens to be from here in Ukraine or somewhere else in the region. And in general, how I help my clients the most is with the in-person experience. Now, unfortunately, for understandable reasons, I'm not currently bringing my clients to Ukraine to live the in-person experience. I am helping my clients with things like visas, residency, and buying real estate here in Ukraine. Yes, there is actually a market for that. It's normally guys who actually are already married to a Ukrainian woman or engaged. A lot of them are my former clients who actually previously lived the in-person experience here with me, maybe back in 2019 or 2020, 2021, before obviously the extended invasion of Ukraine. And again, if you want that kind of help or advice, especially on the real estate, because I get a lot of messages about that, down below, book a consulting call and we can dive deeper into that together. And the in-person experience, whilst I am not currently bringing my clients here to Ukraine, I am bringing them to other places in the region that have proven to be pretty good substitutes. So we go up the road a few hours to Chisinau, crazy Chisinau in Mad Moldova, and it's a lot of fun there. It's probably the country that's the closest culturally to Ukraine where I bring my clients to at the moment. Also, you got Warsaw in Poland. So many Ukrainians and Belarusians have moved to Warsaw in Poland, well, Poland in general, since 2020, shall we say, when the Belarusians started to leave due to increased oppression at home. And as I like to say, actually, the best of Belarus has already left. Belarus you're probably going to find them mainly in Poland and Lithuania. And you have, of course, so many Ukrainians who have moved to Poland. It is a country you're probably with the biggest diaspora per capita at the moment, or it must be pretty close. There is just so many great places that have actually been opened by Ukrainians and Belarusians that attract those diasporas, those two communities, and that is where we will socialize together. Third place I go to is up the road again into the Baltics. You got Riga in Latvia. It is the homeland of the leggy blonde. Latvia has one of the highest instances of blonde hair in the world, and they are some of the tallest people in the world. So if that is what you are aesthetically drawn to, then Riga is a pretty good spot to go and socialize in, maybe spend a few months, maybe even move to ultimately. And lastly, even though it is not exactly completely in Europe, it's mainly in Central Asia, we have Kazakhstan and Almaty, which is the old capital of Kazakhstan. It is the commercial capital of Central Asia. It is phenomenal nature and scenery nearby. It's a big city, between 2 to 3 million people, and it is a lot of fun. Got a lot of friendly Kazakhstanis there. Kazakhstan is like 15% in European and 85% Asian in these big cities, also in Astana, the capital, further to the north. So those are the alternatives. And what will we do on the in-person experience? My in-person experience is a premium introduction to these cities. There is an overlap, but a different type of person probably in terms of mentality than the guys that go to the Ukrainian bride business, in the sense that the Ukrainian bride business is predicated on basically an immigration plan for Ukrainian women to move to normally the US or to Canada. That's my understanding of what the main demographics are. Whilst most of my clients see at least some possibility that they're going to spend a significant amount of time in the city and country that they go to me with. It might be the final one that they settle on. Many of my clients actually come and check out a few cities, and you'll get to tap into my encyclopedic knowledge of the region. Over 10 years in this region, I speak Ukrainian, Russian, Belarusian, Romanian, and you will have an absolutely fantastic time. And you'll have that social circle element. Will go out. You'll be going to the top places. You won't be queuing at some general admission club. You'll have that more VIP access to the places, and you'll get a real taste of whether that city is for you. On top of having an amazing time, of course, we will party hard with the local hotties, the 9s and 10s of the region. So, do побачення from Odessa, Mama. Slava Ukraini, Rom Slava, do перемоги.
SAR Experience.